I'd like to introduce Libby. She's an ordinary Aussie and she's got a lot to say. So give it up for Libby, please.
Hey everybody, can you hear me? Thank you. I'd like to thank the organisers of the Reclaim Australia Countrywide. They are true heroes. I would especially like to thank the Perth organisers for giving me the chance to share the very personal story of my journey to understanding Islam. Please bear in mind, I'm just an ordinary suburban grandmother. Good afternoon to all those with the courage to attend today. I say courage because it does take courage to stand up to those who seek to shut down opposing opinions by crying racist, bigot, Islamophobe. It also takes courage to risk losing friends and family who either from ignorance or fear refuse to acknowledge that Islam undermines our basic freedoms, the freedom of speech, freedom of religion and equality for all before the law. This is the very personal part that I'd like to share with you. Last year, my beloved husband, who was 47 years of age, died in my arms in the space of half an hour. He was my soulmate and my best friend. The only issue we ever disagreed on was the Islamic issue. He believed that as an individual I could do nothing about, and I should just forget about it and enjoy the amazing life that we have made in Australia. Even in the face of his displeasure, I knew that I had to keep on with what I was doing. I still grieve for him every day, but I'm now convinced that everything in my life has led me to this moment to be standing in front of you, sharing my story. About 10 years ago, I realised I was waking up regularly in the wee hours of the morning and thinking and worrying about what I was reading and seeing about Islam in Australia and worldwide. Why was Islam the only religion? I no longer call it a religion, I call it a totalitarian ideology. Why was Islam the only religion which had to continually advertise they were the religion of peace, despite never being in the media for anything other than violence? The Buddhists never have to shout to the world their peacefulness, but we all get that peace and acceptance is their mainstay. More importantly, as a woman and raised as a strict Catholic, I began to question why Muslim women must be covered. My mother's generation and mine as well chose to stand up to the patriarchy inherent in Catholicism. We were still being told in the early 70s that it was a woman's responsibility to dress modestly so as not to inflame men's lusts. The women's liberation movement was in full swing in the 70s, and yet our government was allowing immigrants who obviously did not share this equality for women belief. I realised that I was obsessing about Islam and began to think that I was actually going nuts. I started to question myself. Was I a racist? Was I intolerant? And my conscience really started to plague me. I felt totally alone and did not know where to turn, so I started scouring the internet looking to find other people in Australia who saw a problem with Islam. I found a site called the Australian Islam Monitor, which is no longer updated but is still a great source of information. This put me in contact with others who shared my concerns. I became involved with a group of like-minded Australians in 2010 and have devoted many hours each day to researching the Quran and Hadith. I talk to people and I'm a keyboard warrior in attempting to educate others about Islam. It has become clear to me that many real Australians have a feeling that there is something not quite right with what we're being told about Islam by our ruling elites, but they are too scared to question the narrative for fear of being labelled negatively. I listened to Pauline Hanson, but knew that she was not the right person to be in the spotlight on issues of immigration. She was just another uneducated Australian who knew we were being snowballed on multiculturalism, but didn't know enough to correctly label the problem. Both major parties colluded to have her vilified and to shut her up. Sorry. To shut her up, because they think that our multiculturalism is different to any other place on this earth. Our politicians are ignorant and arrogant. Australian immigration policies have worked in the past because those coming here shared a common value and a belief in hard work and personal responsibility. Previous immigrants expected nothing except a safe haven and a chance to improve their lot in life. Islamic teachings and the Islamic mindset are the antithesis of those of us who value freedom and democracy. I compare Muslims to the aliens on Star Trek called the Borg. They live in hives, Islamic enclaves. They operate as one, the Ummah, and take over every other group they become in contact with, Sharia law. What I am about to say may offend some who are here today, but it is a firmly held belief of mine, so I'm prepared to take flak over it. Australian culture is built on Judeo-Christian values. Some of these values are covered by laws and some are just covered by social standards. Just a couple of examples of how Islam is the exact antithesis of our beliefs. We believe thou shalt not lie. Okay, we all tell porkies from time to time, but, you know, it's not the end of the world. But according to Islamic teachings, lying is not only acceptable, but actually mandatory to fool the kuffar into believing anything that will advance the cause of Islam. Quran chapter 13:42. Allah is the master of schemers. Quran 3:54. Allah is the greatest deceiver. This means that there are 3 strikes against Ed Husick, actually acting in the best interests of non-Muslim Australians. The first being he's a Muslim and has no problem lying to achieve his aims. The second is he took his oath to the Australian people on the Quran, and as a Muslim, his only loyalty is to Sharia law. And when Australian law contradicts Sharia, Sharia will be his guiding principle. We must be very aware of who we elect to represent us, even at the local council level. It is happening in the UK, where Muslims have taken over the council and work only for the Islamic community. I am also very careful when I go to the doctor and always insist that I do not see a Muslim doctor. This is because the Hippocratic Oath taken by doctors is a man-made law and is not binding on a follower of Islam. Islam has different words for different sorts of deceptions, which I won't go into here, but my favourite one is Kitman of the Shia doctrine, and it is a telling of half truths, e.g. I hate Hitler, really meaning I hate Hitler because he didn't kill all the Jews. The next thing is thou shalt not kill. We all believe in the sanctity of human life. According to my beliefs, this is an absolute, and I do not even condone the death penalty state sanctioned. I also believe that we need to get out of the Middle East and become self-sufficient in our energy. Anyway, getting on to the Muslims. According to Islam, it is okay for Muslims to kill the following: non-Muslims if they refuse to revert to Islam or pay the jizya, anyone who questions or makes fun of Islam and Muhammad, other Muslims who aren't Muslim enough, consenting adults having sex, women who bring dishonour on their family or husband, women who refuse to marry the man picked out for them, and they can kill us if we use their drinking or eating utensils. Because Islam holds non-Muslims in contempt and has no obligation to treat us with any respect, it is easy for them to indulge in conquest of their host nations because they are not hamstrung by human rights or any common human decency. And there are 4 stages to Islamic conquest. The first stage is infiltration. They migrate And then they appeal to our humanitarian and our human rights and all that. The second stage is consolidation of power, where they start preaching on the streets and they try to change our history, they try to intimidate and silence us. They attempt to introduce Islamic blasphemy laws to shut us up from talking about Islam. There's many more. The third stage, sorry. My fingers aren't working. Stage 3, open war with the leadership and the culture. So this is intentional efforts to undermine the host government and culture, where we're already at. We're up to stage 3 in being invaded and taken over. And then stage 4 comes totalitarian Islamic theocracy, and all that holds. That's it, that's finished. Anyway, the more I learn, the more I become convinced that it is essential for everyday Australians to educate themselves about the true nature of Islam, so that those who come after us can continue to enjoy the freedoms of this amazing country we call home. I will not have my great-grandchildren and all who come after me spit on my grave for being a coward. Stand together, never submit.